William Billy Halpern was a man known for his dedication and service to the community as a firefighter in South Florida. At just 28 years old, he had already made a name for himself in the local community, not only for his work in public service, but also for his passion for bodybuilding. Billy was a regular at the Apollo Gym and Fitness Center, a well-known establishment in Hollywood, Florida, where many of the area's firefighters, paramedics, and police officers would train. The Apollo Gym, which opened in 1980, quickly became the go-to spot for serious bodybuilders. It was a place where the disciplined and determined would gather to push their physical limits. But beneath the surface, the gym harbored a darker side. Over time, it became a haven not just for those committed to fitness, but also for individuals involved in criminal activities, including drug dealing. The gym's reputation, once built on the sweat and effort of its members, began to tarnish as it attracted more nefarious characters. Billy Halpern, despite his clean and respectable image, was caught in the orbit of this environment. On October 21, 1986, the life of this young firefighter came to a brutal end. He was found slain in his own home in Miramar, Florida, a scene so gruesome that it shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Billy had been beaten severely, stabbed multiple times, and strangled. His throat was slashed from ear to ear, indicating a level of violence and intent that suggested a deeply personal or symbolic act. In the days and weeks following the crime, the community was left reeling. Billy was well liked and respected, making his violent death all the more perplexing. The investigation into his demise was immediate, but it quickly became clear that solving this case would not be straightforward. The crime scene offered few clear leads. There was no sign of forced entry into Billy's home, which suggested that he might have known his assailant or assailants. This raised the possibility that the slaying was not a random act of violence, but rather a targeted attack, possibly motivated by a personal vendetta or an issue connected to Billy's life outside of his work as a firefighter. One of the first theories the investigators considered was that Billy's involvement in bodybuilding and his connections to the Apollo Gym might have played a role in his death. While its opening, the Apollo Gym was initially advertised as the ultimate exercising facility in the country, attracting a diverse mix of fitness enthusiasts, including police officers, firefighters, and paramedics. However, it wasn't long before the gym developed a reputation for harboring individuals involved in illegal activities, particularly drug dealing. Therefore, the gym became a focal point in the investigation. Nevertheless, the gym's mixed clientele, which included both upstanding citizens and those involved in criminal enterprises, complicated matters. It was difficult to determine who among the gym's patrons might have had a motive to kill Billy. As detectives delved deeper, they discovered that the Apollo Gym had ties to organized crime, particularly through its owner, Gilbert Fernandez Jr., a former Miami-Dade police officer. Fernandez, known for his bodybuilding prowess and connections to the criminal underworld, was a figure of interest. However, there was no direct evidence linking him to Billy's demise, and Fernandez himself was later convicted of unrelated slayings, leaving the investigators without a clear suspect in Halpern's case. The investigation was further hampered by a lack of eyewitnesses or concrete forensic evidence that could be used to build a case. In 1986, forensic technology was not as advanced as it is today, and the DNA evidence available from the crime scene could not be fully utilized. The police followed various leads, including tips from the public and interviews with those close to Billy, but each potential breakthrough seemed to lead to a dead end. For more than 3 decades, the case of William Billy Halpern's slaying remained unsolved, relegated to the cold case files of the Miramar Police Department. The passage of time, however, did not erase the memory of Billy's brutal death from the minds of his family or the dedicated officers who had once worked the case. Advances in forensic technology and a renewed commitment to solving cold cases eventually led to the reopening of Billy Halpern's case in 2023. The renewed investigation began when Miramar cold case detective Danny Smith took a fresh look at the evidence. Smith was part of a new generation of detectives, trained in the latest investigative techniques and driven by a determination to solve cases that had long been forgotten. The first step in reopening the Halpern case was a thorough re-examination of the original evidence, including crime scene photographs, autopsy reports, and witness statements. But it was the advent of new forensic technologies, particularly advancements in DNA analysis, that would prove to be the game changer. In the years since Billy's passing, DNA technology had evolved significantly, allowing investigators to analyze samples that would have been considered too small or degraded in the 1980s. Smith and his team sent several pieces of evidence, including items collected from the crime scene, for DNA testing. The results provided a crucial breakthrough: a match to DNA found at the scene of another, eerily similar, double slaying that had occurred around the same time in Tamarack, Florida. These slayings in Tamarack had remained unsolved, but the DNA evidence linked it to a man named Harry Collier, a figure connected to the same shady circles that frequented the Apollo gym. Collier, who had been involved in various criminal activities, was known for his violent tendencies. Unfortunately, Collier himself had been slain in the years following Billy's death, preventing law enforcement from questioning him or bringing him to trial. This connection between the two cases reignited the investigation into Billy's slaying. Detectives began to piece together a possible scenario that Billy, perhaps unwittingly, had become entangled in a dangerous web of criminal activity centered around the Apollo gym. Whether Billy was targeted because of something he knew, something he saw, or simply because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, was still unclear. But what was now evident was that his slaying was likely not an isolated incident, but part of a larger pattern of violence linked to the gym's criminal underworld. Detective Smith and his team, with this new information in hand, held a press conference in January 2024. They announced the reopening of the case and appealed to the public for any additional information that might help bring the remaining perpetrators to justice. The Halpern family, particularly Billy's sister Lori, spoke at the event, urging anyone with knowledge of the case to come forward. By June 2024, Detective Smith held another press conference. Concluding the cold case once and for all, he revealed that while they could not prosecute Collier due to his death, they were confident that he was directly involved in Billy's slaying. This announcement provided some measure of closure to Billy's family, particularly his sister Lori, who had been advocating for justice for nearly 4 decades. Yet, despite this resolution, a crucial question remains unanswered. Was Billy Halpern targeted because of something he knew, something he saw, or was he merely in the wrong place at the wrong time? These lingering doubts continue to cast a shadow over the case. We may never know the full truth, but what do you think? Could it be that Billy stumbled upon something too dangerous to ignore? Or was he an innocent caught in the crosshairs of a violent world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could shed light on this enduring mystery. The night of December 19, 2004, in Hamilton, Ohio, was like any other at the Roundhouse Bar, a popular local establishment known for its lively atmosphere. Among the patrons that night was Benjamin Becerra, a 25-year-old known to frequent the bar. Becerra had been involved in a previous barroom brawl at the same location weeks earlier, an event that seemed to foreshadow the tragic events to come. On this particular night, tensions flared again when Becerra found himself in a confrontation with another patron, Antonio El Diablo Riano. Riano, who had a reputation for his temper and had been involved in previous altercations, was not a stranger to conflict. The initial argument between Becerra and Riano began inside the bar, drawing the attention of other patrons and the bartender. The bartender, hoping to de-escalate the situation, intervened and insisted that the two men take their argument outside. Reluctantly, they complied, stepping out into the cold Ohio night. Moments later, the quiet was shattered by the sound of gunfire. Witnesses inside the bar rushed outside to find Becerra lying face down on the sidewalk, a bullet wound in his face, his life tragically cut short. Riano, the alleged shooter, fled the scene in his van. Surveillance cameras captured his hasty departure, and police quickly began piecing together the events leading up to the shooting. Witnesses who were present at the bar that night described the confrontation in detail. According to their accounts, the argument began inside the bar and escalated when both men were instructed to take it outside by the bartender. Within minutes of stepping outside, the argument turned deadly as gunshots rang out, leaving Becerra fatally wounded on the sidewalk. Further investigation revealed that Riano had been seen purchasing bullets at a local Walmart just hours before the shooting. This discovery added a premeditated element to the crime, suggesting that Riano had intended to use the bullets that night. The receipt from the purchase, along with the surveillance footage from the store, provided irrefutable evidence linking Riano to the crime. 10 days after the murder, law enforcement officers executed a search warrant at Riano's Hamilton home. During the search, they discovered the murder weapon, a handgun, hidden in a secret compartment under the kitchen floor. The gun, which still had rounds in the chamber, matched the bullets purchased at Walmart, further solidifying the case against Riano. Detective Mark Henson, who was leading the investigation, noted that all the evidence pointed directly to Riano as the shooter. With that being the case, law enforcement swiftly moved to charge him with first-degree murder. However, Riano evaded capture by fleeing Ohio. Initially, he sought refuge with his sister in New Jersey before making his way to Oaxaca, Mexico. This marked the beginning of a 2-decade-long manhunt that spanned multiple countries and involved numerous law enforcement agencies. In the early days following the murder, Riano's whereabouts were a mystery. Despite being profiled on the popular TV show America's Most Wanted in 2005, which brought national attention to the case, leads remained scarce. Riano had effectively disappeared, leaving behind a trail that quickly went cold. Detective Mark Henson and his team continued their efforts, but the lack of new information hampered progress. Riano's ability to elude capture showcased his cunning and resourcefulness. It wasn't until 2024 that a renewed effort by Paul Newton, a former detective who had transitioned to working with the Butler County Prosecutor's Office, reignited the search for Riano. Newton utilized modern technology and online databases to trace Riano's steps. His persistence paid off when he discovered that Riano was living in Zapotitlan Palmas, Oaxaca, under an assumed identity. Newton's breakthrough came when he found that Riano was working as a police officer in the small Mexican town. This revelation was both shocking and ironic. Riano, a wanted fugitive, was enforcing the law in another country. Newton described his reaction upon discovering Riano's new life. "I'm like, my God, there he is. A little bit grayer, a little bit older, but it was him." On August 1st, 2024, a coordinated effort involving the U.S. Marshals, the Butler County Prosecutor's Office, the U.S. Department of Justice, the American Consulate, and Mexican authorities led to Riano's arrest. The arrest was executed seamlessly, with Riano taken into custody without incident while he was in uniform. Riano was swiftly transported to Mexico City, where he was handed over to U.S. Marshals. From there, he was flown back to Cincinnati and transported to the Butler County Jail. The arrest of Riano was a significant moment for the investigators who had worked tirelessly on the case. Detective Mark Henson expressed a sense of closure, noting that all the evidence they had gathered over the years had finally led to this moment. Upon his return to Ohio, Riano faced the legal system that had been waiting for his capture since 2005. He was formally charged with first-degree murder and pleaded not guilty in Butler County Court. Judge Michael Oster Jr. ordered that Riano be held without bond, citing the severity of the charges and the lengthy period during which Riano had evaded capture. His next court hearing was scheduled for August 12, 2024. Do you think Riano will be found guilty? What are your thoughts on his life as a police officer while being a fugitive? Share your insights in the comments below. If you find this video compelling, show your support by giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to our channel, and ringing that notification bell. By doing so, you'll stay updated about the latest investigations and mysteries. Your support means the world to us as we continue to pursue the truth in the world of cold cases.